So maybe a good starting place for those that haven't gotten a chance to see you either on one of my prior podcasts or haven't been in a Leadership Foundry session with you. What was your journey that you went on before you got into Leadership Foundry, and what was that pivot that had us start working together?
Yeah, gosh, I'm really glad we're having this conversation because I get those questions too, and I think it's just time that we address everything. So my background goes back 30 years. When I graduated from the University of Georgia, went into operations leadership with a national retailer, ran operations all over Atlanta for them. Really got my business sort of foundation there, P&L management, training, leadership, all that stuff. And then I made a pivot into the talent side of business and got hired by Waffle House, and I was their vice president of people for 4 years. So I ran recruiting, training, and diversity for that $2 billion company for 4 years, and then made another segue into executive search and got hired by Bell Oaks Executive Search as their managing partner and ran that company for about 13 years. But during my time at Bell Oaks, I got really drawn to coaching. Did a lot of that work for our clients, a lot of our candidates. Had been a trained interviewer for many years, so I was always interested in learning about people, getting to understand their backgrounds, and then eventually understanding the obstacles that stood between them and success. So eventually I just came to a place in my mid-40s where I knew that I wanted to work just on coaching and leadership development, sold my interest in Bell Oaks, and I started serving partners at the end of 2012. And
so I had no idea that's already been over 10 years.
Yes.
Wow.
So that we're in the 10th year with Serving Partners, and I do executive coaching and leadership consulting, work very similar to you. And along the way, started writing books. I've written 8 books. Like to blog, I'm very fond of writing, so that's a passion for me. And you and I met, if you recall, almost 20 years ago. And we had hired you at Bell Oaks to do a pretty significant consulting project. And you and I hit it off, became friends. And I think it's interesting for people that are interested in the Leadership Foundry to understand that our early friendship really focused on trust and shared values. We found ways to partner wherever we could. We helped each other's businesses. But then eventually you and I had a shared vision for what can we do that would be different for companies and leaders in that leadership development space. If you remember, we used to call that idea corporate university. Kind of a clunky name.
We did.
But eventually those dinner napkin ideas became the Leadership Foundry.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, great. Right. And I remember all those conversations we used to have over lunch. And it's surprising to know that we've been friends and colleagues for 20 years before we really became business partners around that. And so if I kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, tell me about your background.
I started kind of a similar journey in that it's always been about leadership development and the people side of business. Yeah, for those that aren't familiar with my background, I've got some of an eclectic background. I've got a clinical therapy background and an MBA. So I always tell people that's like my version of a Reese's peanut butter cup. Somehow it kind of works. It's that chocolate and peanut butter. Both have been doing coaching as a practice since 2005. So, close to 20 years as an executive coach. And then have been kind of teaching in various universities, both Georgia State University and Emory University, in their MBA programs, executive education programs. So very, very familiar and passionate about developing leaders. But the idea of being able to do it for leaders that maybe couldn't access some of those universities or didn't have some of the resources got me really, really excited, which was the impetus for a lot of our initial conversations. And you're right, we've had conversations and had a friendship for many, many years, and then it just kind of sparked. And what most people don't know is we actually started Leadership Foundry before the pandemic.
Yes.
We were doing work with clients in a more old school fashion where it was in-person sessions. And we were really having great impact and had some great clients that we worked with around that time. And then the pandemic happened, and that really changed how we approached how we served our clients.